Let's shake off that ring rust and explore your return to the squared circle. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. Throughout my career, I've been very fortunate. I've worked in front of the cameras as a professional wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and commentator. And I have worked behind the scenes too, as a promoter, booker, agent, coach, and consultant. And today's Till We Make It is especially for my patron, Joe, but it's for you too. I think there are 5 topics we must discuss as you prepare to return to the ring, whether that is just for training or for the purpose of performing in front of a live audience after some time away. As we get ready to dive in, please do all the YouTube things. I'm bad about asking for the engagement. I need you to subscribe and to like and to leave a comment and ring the notification bell and blow on the Nintendo cartridge, and please remain seated while the ride is in motion. Thanks a lot. Whether you've enjoyed a bit of a sabbatical from wrestling or an injury forced you to the sidelines for a period of time, this is the thing we have to talk about first. On your first day back at training, I want you to engage in some light warm-ups before you do a complete stretch of your body. So I want you to do maybe a little light tumbling, maybe some calisthenics. Maybe you're going to run a few laps around the training facility and then settle in for a long, deep stretch. But you're going to do this after your muscles have already started to warm up. When your muscles are warm, you're going to be able to get a much deeper stretch than when they are cold. And if you jump in and just start stretching before you've warmed your body up, your muscles are cold. And that's when you're far more likely to pull or strain a muscle which you haven't been using of late. So, before you get down to the stretching on day 1, make sure you've started to warm your muscles up. This brings me to topic number 2 about your return to training after any injury or hiatus. Don't throw yourself immediately into the most rigorous parts of pro wrestling training, especially on day 1. You don't need to jump right back in and start taking high back body drop bumps or getting bandera'd out of the ring all the way down to the floor of the arena on day 1. Not to prove something to yourself, not to prove something to anybody else either. Remember that this is a process. Your return to in-ring training is a process, and no matter how badly we might want it to be, that process is not started and completed on the same day. For example, my most recent layoff from the ring lasted for 5 weeks, and on my first day back, even though I wanted to feel like my old self, the reality is the most I could do was about 15% of what I used to do. And then by day 2, well, maybe I'd made it to about 30% of what I used to do. And on day 3 of resuming training, I was about halfway back to where I wanted to be. But my point in all of this is that I wasn't back to my 100% on day 1 because this is a process which, in order to avoid any setbacks in your recovery or rehabilitation, must be gradual. This next one is key, so pay close attention. Point number 3 is perhaps the most important when discussing your return to training, and it is this. You must know when to stop. You have to be upfront with your coach about your time away or the nature of your injury, but while you are actually in the ring training, you have to know when it's time to stop. And here's exactly what I mean. You have to be able to judge when the training class has waded into waters your body isn't ready for yet, and you have to be able to recognize those signs and know that means it's time for you to stop. And so, before the class even begins, you need to have a discussion with your coach about exactly that, so that if you feel as if you are no longer able to continue, you can quickly and respectfully excuse yourself from class and do so without disturbing the rest of the trainees. and then you're just going to retire to your seat respectfully and continue to observe the class. But you need to be cognizant of when you've been pushed a little too far during this process of returning to the ring. And going beyond that might feel like you are pushing yourself, but it could represent a certain risk to your recovery and your rehabilitation. You could actually set yourself back by going too hard too soon. I can readily think of an example just like this from my own career when attempting to return to training after having suffered a concussion. Certain types of tumbling exercises would immediately make my symptoms resurface. I could feel that fog on my brain, and it was accompanied by a pain that I describe as being a spider web-like pain that would cover my skull. And the moment that I would feel those symptoms coming back, I knew I had to stop. If I didn't, I was risking making the previous injury worse by not allowing enough time to properly heal. And that's going to mean more time off, more time away, and being set back even further in my desire to eventually return to the craft. A little advice from someone who's come back from plenty of injuries over the decades. I think if you hit a point in your class that you feel you must stop so as not to set yourself back, consider yourself done for the day. I would advise you against waiting a few minutes and then rejoining the class. When you know it's time to stop, that means you have stopped for the day. My fourth point on the topic of your in-ring return is this: explore options for solo training. So there may be the possibility at your training facility to book the ring out for solo training or to be supervised by your coach. And you probably just need to have a discussion with the head trainer or head coach of the facility to discover if there are options available to you. Because there certainly are people out there who want to recover lost skills or shake off ring rust or just work on their recovery without having a line of impatient trainees behind them in class. And if that sounds like you and an environment in which you'd be more comfortable working out all those kinks in your game during this process of returning to the ring, then it's probably as simple as having a conversation about what solo training options are available to you. Point number 5 is one no professional wrestler likes to talk about. And believe me, I feel this very deeply and very personally. You must discover your new ceiling. Do you know what I mean by that? There are some injuries after which you are able to make a full recovery and return to training or performing in front of a live crowd at 100%. And as someone who's accrued a whole lot of injuries over the course of a few thousand matches, I can tell you, there have been a few injuries which have made my old ceiling of 100% unattainable. I was no longer able to get back there. A few years back, after I shattered my leg in Secaucus, New Jersey, my old 100% was no longer on the table for me. The best I could get to was maybe 95% of my old self. And that 95% became my new ceiling. You may come up against a similar sobering realization after returning to the ring from an injury, that your old ceiling of 100% is no longer attainable. No matter how well-trained or well-rehearsed you happen to be, accidents can happen and injuries can be the result. And our bodies are fallible. They are only capable of absorbing a finite amount of damage. And you may get to the point in a long-tenured career where your body simply can't absorb and recover from any more of a certain type of damage. And your old ceiling of 100% might be off the table. Does this mean you can never train again? Does this mean that you can never perform again? Well, not necessarily. But if your doctor is willing to give you the okay to return to the ring in some capacity, this will challenge you to adjust and to adapt so that you can continue your reign inside the squared circle. If you're not currently training in the ring and putting your body through its paces, then let's put your brain to work. Toolbox Building Better Pro Wrestling looks at 4 areas of the game: ingredients for a successful match, the structure that makes it all work, self-development both in the ring and in preparation for your career, and professional growth. And it's on Amazon and Audible right now. And hey, thanks to all of my awesome patrons, like Joe, who suggested today's video, and Ace, and Michael. And if you want to join us over on Patreon, check out that link that's appearing right now on the screen. When you click it, you can come over to join our community for as little as $5 a month, where you're going to get all kinds of exclusives.